Hi, this is Dustin with Dustin's Dollars. Today I'm going to be talking about Russian gas and LNG exports. This is part of my continuing research into the macro picture for LNG, and I think this is a very important topic to understand nowadays as Russian gas is being sanctioned by the EU. Before I begin, let me remind you that I am not a financial advisor or a financial professional of any sort. All opinions that I express in this video are mine and do not represent those of any company or any other individual. I currently hold a long position in Tellurian and Next Decade, which are both companies that are building LNG export facilities in the United States. So basically, this video should be for your entertainment purposes only, because I could be wrong about everything that I say in this video. You need to do your own research before making any investment decisions. So I'm going to give you the overall summary first, because this might be a bit of a dry subject. So I'll give you the summary in about 1 minute. And then, if you want to hop off after that, just getting the Cliff Notes, feel free. So the overall summary of what I think I've learned from my research is that Russia holds about 45% of the world's total gas reserves, and they export about 6.6 trillion cubic feet of gas per year. This is the equivalent of about 136 million tons per year if this was all liquefied and exported in the form of LNG. In reality, they actually export about 84% of this gas through pipelines, and their total LNG liquefaction capacity is only about 28 million tons per year. They do also export a small amount of coal. They do also export, someone on the live chat, Walkaza, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, says aloha. So hi, or aloha, I guess I should say. So Russia also exports some coal to Europe, and I did not actually go through that in the rest of this video, but I thought it was also interesting because that's another energy source that I have to imagine is probably going to be sanctioned and probably is a really good candidate to be replaced with LNG usage. One other thing that I saw, or it seemed to be the case in my research, was that Asian countries don't seem like they've stopped their plans to import gas from Russia, either current imports that they are doing, or even plans for their stakes in certain LNG export facilities. Those seem like they're still continuing. So the bottom line with all of that is really that even if Asian countries are happy to take on Russian gas, it seems like the lack of liquefaction capacity in Russia and the lack of pipelines that are built out to Asia is going to strand quite a bit of gas in Russia that is currently being exported to the EU, and that looks like it's about, let's just ballpark at about 5 trillion cubic feet per year. So going into more of the details a little bit, I have a couple sources that I got for that information. The first one here is from, it's an article from Al Jazeera, and they talked about which countries have the most natural gas, and they said Russia by far has the most natural gas, which was a crazy amount. I think I did some rough math. It looks like Russia has about 45% of the world's proven gas reserves, and the United States is on this list in the number 5, but we actually have about somewhere between a quarter and a third, closer probably to a quarter of the gas that Russia has. So let me find it in here. Somewhere in here it says, wrong window. European imports. Yeah. So, and this is in 2021, Europe imported 380 million cubic meters per day through pipelines. So that was about 140 billion cubic meters for the year. And so there was an additional 15 billion cubic meters delivered from Russia to Europe in the form of LNG. So that tells you right there, just eyeballing the numbers, about 90% of the gas going from Russia to Europe was through pipelines, not through LNG. There's also just going to go through a couple other interesting articles that give you the macro picture here and give you more details about Russia's gas exports. This shows how much Russian gas is exported to to some of the top countries. You can see there's a lot of European countries represented on here. That was sort of already noted in the prior article, but you can see there's also some Asian countries, China, Japan, Kazakhstan. So there's other customers for their gas. I think the gas that goes to China and Japan, I'm not sure about Kazakhstan, but I think especially Japan, there's a lot of LNG that makes its way from Russia to Japan. And so that's really just a takeaway from this article. And then there is a great article with pretty good information from the actual U.S. government, the Energy Information Administration. This has a little more detail and more credible numbers for, or let me say vetted numbers maybe is the better word, for exactly how much gas Russia exports to all of these different regions. You could see it here, and this is where I also, this is the graph for gas. I'll probably zoom that in a little bit. And so this is Europe, right? You can see that this is where I got the actual 6.6 trillion cubic feet per year in terms of how much gas they export. Hi, Alex. He says, hi, Dustin. Alex Lamb here. Keep up the good work. Hi. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. And so this gives you a good picture of, country by country for the largest ones of information from the U.S. government, which I think is even, maybe a better source for this. And you can see just visually the difference between how much they export to Europe versus the rest of the world. It's overwhelmingly Russian gas goes to Europe. And again, you sort of have this, oh, why didn't it load? I don't know why this isn't loading. Luckily, I copied the information down, but earlier this loaded for me. This website, Statista, had a nice table here. I'm not a member. Maybe I should join. Had a nice table here showing, maybe if I zoom in, maybe that was the difference. Nope, that didn't do it. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. I'll just have to tell you the cliff notes here. This was a list of all of the pipelines, export pipelines of gas from Russia to other countries. I guess I could have my copy paste here. You'll see my notes that I was using. It is this right here. There was Nord Stream and Nord Stream 2, which were both 55 BCM. Then there was China, the pipeline to China, the Power of Siberia, listed as 38 BCM. And then there was a pipeline to Poland for about 33, another pipeline to Europe for about 32, and then a couple to Turkey for 31.5 and 16. So that gives you an overview. So I'm going to move my notes back over here. It gives you an overview of just all the pipelines. Hi, wow, lots of folks on the stream tonight. Hello, Brian. Hello, Transient Stacker. Hello, everybody. Glad to see you all here. It's awesome. It's new for me to have more than like one person on here. That's pretty cool. But so that's a listing of the pipelines that they have, and so there's a lot. The point is there's a lot more export capacity in Russia through pipelines rather than through LNG. And the implication there is those pipelines all run to Europe. And if Europe's no longer taking their gas, that gas can't just magically be liquefied and sent over to China. So, because this was the question that I'm really trying to answer. The question I'm really trying to answer for myself here is, what is the impact of Europe not taking that gas? Can China just step in and say, hey, we're happy to buy it all? And I think this is me trying to answer the question. I've come to the conclusion right now that the answer is mostly no. And I also have this list of LNG terminals that they have in Russia. There's 2 operating terminals, and I think there's plans for 3 more. And I think this is sort of already alluded to up above or early in my my video. Sorry, I'm a little bit tired. There's this, I'll attempt to pronounce it, Sakhalin LNG plant. This one was 11.5 million tons per year. And this one has, I'm not sure who all the customers are. They're not all listed as far as I can tell, but there are some to Japan. About a third of that is for Japan and about 20% to Korea. The remainder is sort of a question mark. Not really sure. Then there's also this Yamal LNG. This is a 16.5 million tons per year. And this was contracted out to, let's see, I think these are the, sorry, give me one moment. I think the customers were listed on this website here. No, what did I get? Sorry, I didn't do a good job taking notes today. I was rushed a little bit. But I have just pull over my notes here. They're not really very structured, but we're looking right here. There's some to Total, some to, I think, CNPC. I think that's a Chinese company. I could be wrong. Gazprom, and then a couple other, I think, Russian Russian companies that are then taking it somewhere else. But that really tells you the point here is some of this is already tied up by China and by Korea, right? In the Asian countries and Japan. And so even of that 28 total million tons per year of liquefaction capacity that Russia has, that potentially Asian customers could decide to purchase the gas from Russia through. Some of that is already even tied up through Asian buyers. So I think it's the opportunity for Asia to step in and buy Russian gas, that when Europe says, hey, we're not going to take your gas, is even smaller than 28 million tons per year of LNG. I think it is more along the lines of 11 million tons per year, which is going to strand, as I said before, in the sort of giving you the summary up front. By my calculations, it looks like it's going to strand about 5 trillion cubic feet of gas per year in terms of what was currently exported. And so that is my best, that's really the bottom line that I'm trying to get across here, and or that share with you as far as that's a conclusion that I've come to. And I think that, the implications of that are really interesting in terms of that leaves a gap of, just ballparking it like 100 million tons per year of gas, sorry, the equivalent of that much LNG per year that is no longer going onto the market. And so if we were to replace that with, LNG export facilities, that would be like, roughly 4 driftwoods. So that's kind of the bottom line. I don't know if there's some folks still in the chat. If you all have any comments or thoughts or questions, I'll stick around for just a minute or two, because I know there is a bit of a delay in the YouTube streams. I've seen this so many times. It's super frustrating. All right. Well, Kaza says, keep in mind these things are considered finite energy sources, and so by the mid 21st century, it will become smaller. That's why there is a push for alternatives of energy. This relates to increasing our independence, ensuring our national security. Hope I didn't scare anyone. No, I mean that's absolutely the case, right? I think the this is what I went over with. One of the things I'm trying to really understand, and why I went through sort of the macro picture last time, I shared my best research that I was able to find right there for LNG, and that is that really the demand for LNG is twofold. Is that, number one, renewable sources, from what I've seen in other places, and again, I don't know this firsthand, is that they can't really ramp up that production quickly enough to really fulfill the world's growing energy needs as they have it. I mean, they're still using coal in China, and that's really the second piece, which is gas is a pretty easy transition fuel source where coal is being used today, and it is significantly better for emissions, and it's significantly better for pollution in all these places that are using coal today. And it's viewed really as a transition source. But I think even this was I'm thinking about this from the investor's perspective, and I think there's a couple decades worth of demand for natural gas that is going to continue. I think I agree with you in the decades long time frame. If you're talking 2050, 2060, like you said, the mid 21st century, from what I understand right now, I mean, I have to imagine there's going to be an inflection point where it gets harder and harder to get fossil fuel, right? Because let's even go back to this very first one, very first article, and they list out these are the proven gas reserves for all these countries, but yeah, those are finite, right? There's going to come a time, if we just pump more and more and more, that it's going to get harder and harder to get those resources. Transient Stacker asks, could that lead to demand destruction? I'm not sure exactly. Could what lead to demand destruction? I mean, demand destruction is really price based from my understanding, and so if the prices go up and up and up because it gets harder and harder to get the fuels, then yeah, absolutely, right. And that's really the economics on renewable sources, I think that's the, longer term, really going to be one of the key questions is how much does it cost for a scalable solution to those, right? And the scalable, I think, is the key point because, if I understand things correctly, and I haven't done nearly as much research into that as I have into like natural gas and LNG, but I think there are some, supply constraints on some of the raw materials they need for a lot of for like solar. I don't know about some other renewable sources. I'm just not that familiar with them. Higher prices due to less Russian gas. Yeah, absolutely it could. Um, the question is really fundamentally what are they going to replace it with, right? Because energy is one of those things, and this is, I could be wrong, but this is my impression is that energy is one of those things where, you know, when we're taking Russian gas out of the picture, that's an immediate drop. This is not someone deciding and saying, "Hey, we want to increase how much energy we have available. What sources do we want to use to fulfill that need?" This is we already have the need, and we're actually taking it away. Um, in terms of we're no longer taking the Russian gas, and so that's that's painful, right? And so they want to replace that as quickly as possible, right? And this is what you see over in Europe where people are uh, what I believe or what I read from the media is that it costs more and more and more to heat your house to pay for your electricity, and people need their electricity now, and so whatever is going to be one of the most expedient uh, fuel sources is going to be there. But I think it's a good question because like I'll be honest, maybe if someone out there knows better than me, what is it going to be for what is a timeline for renewable sources to actually like let's just take a project like Driftwood. We know that that's going to take us, I don't know, 4 years, right, to get to the point where it's exporting. Granted, it's going to be exporting quite a bit of energy at the end of that 4 years, and maybe they'll be able to do it quicker. I don't know. I'm not quite sure on those things. That they keep some of those details a bit proprietary and confidential, but I don't know what the equivalent is in terms of renewables. I don't know how long it would take to manufacture and bring up a facility that could, let's say, replace the energy that Driftwood would export. All right, Brian says emerging markets are way behind on clean energy. The same way of thinking put the Western world in the situation we are in right now. The same way of thinking. You mean doing whatever's the quickest? That's my best my best interpretation. Sorry, maybe if you can give me a little more details there. Wakaza says, personally, I welcome any energy sources, including LNG, to keep America moving and acceptably safe. Yeah, I mean, I'm generally there with you. Like, I think I'm not sure that anybody really disagrees with saying, hey, we'd love to have renewable sources 100%. The problem is just getting that to happen and making that economical, right? Because I think people would be all for it until you say, great, the equivalent of driving your car 30 miles, which you can do on 1 gallon of gasoline, now costs 10 times what you pay right now for gas. People would be unhappy with that, even if it was completely renewable. And that's a total hypothetical, but yeah, I think I think LNG, as I've looked into it, I think it's one of the the concept, and I'm a software engineer, and then we make trade-offs all the time, but this the concept of just the least worst solution that you have facing you, and I think LNG is in many ways one of the least worst options that we have to quickly start making progress on both pollution and emissions. And this is I'll have to pull it up if I can get the Shell LNG Outlook. I wonder if I still have that PDF. One of the interesting things here, and this is what I've heard for a while, is that natural gas and by extension then liquefied natural gas for the places that don't just have a nice pipeline infrastructure available, complements renewables because renewables are also, that's not what I want. I want the full PDF. Renewables are also tend to be not inconsistent in terms of their output, as far as I understand it, right? And this picture right here, this graph really drives it home. This is in California. What's their electricity mix, right? How are they generating electricity from what underlying fuel source, hour by hour? And you can see the green are the renewables. And so they have a whole lot here. At peak, right? At peak, they are generating, looks like almost 80, maybe 90% of their electricity from renewables. But that the output from those renewables is so variable throughout the day that at nighttime and when it's potentially, not as windy, you are getting a lot less from those renewables. And so what makes up the difference? What's a convenient fuel source so that they can continue outputting the power that they need to? Gas, right? So they use gas when they need it. They don't use gas when they don't need it. The alternative to that, the alternative solution is some battery storage, or electricity storage mechanism like batteries or something. I don't know enough. I have not done enough research into that to really know how feasible those things are. Yeah. And then they do have a couple other charts here that show you. Here's one talking about in the UK throughout the course of the year, where you can see there's different amounts of wind over time, right? And so you use more gas when there's less wind blowing and vice versa. And then they had this similar chart here for Brazil, where Brazil is using hydropower. And, again, gas is able to step in and fulfill the need when there is less hydropower available. So I think the point here is there may be a role for gas as a minority fuel source, even for, the medium term, for the longer term, let's say, not even over the next decade or two, even for decades past that. Yeah, that's another potential source of demand for gas here. Let's see, anything else? Yeah, Brian says, what I meant is the Western world has been ignoring oil and gas industry, but not putting the right incentives for investments that allows a transition to clean energy. Yes, I agree with that. While Kaza says wood pellets are on the rise in the U.S. Interesting. I don't know that much about wood pellets. I have been reading a bit about carbon emissions, because that's been a common thing. And I think the carbon emissions from wood actually tends to be pretty bad at least compared to gas. I wonder. So let's see, carbon emissions by fuel source. Let's do natural gas and wood. Just because I'm curious, is wood a green source of energy? Compared with coal, wood fuel cut carbon emissions by 74 to 85%. Interesting. Is burning wood better than natural gas? Burning wood releases about 75% more CO2 than natural gas. A lot. Here's one website from the Sierra Club. I have no idea if that's more or less credible than than anything else. So ideally, I think some of these sciencey things are pretty good to get from the government. Wakaza says, check EVA. I will check EVA. I have no idea what EVA is. Come on, finance. Where greenhouse gases come from. It doesn't even talk about wood. Thank you, Google, for those helpful search results. EVA. I'll check out EVA, and then I'm gonna maybe hop off to go to bed, because I have to work tomorrow. But I appreciate having y'all on here. This is great. This is some great conversation. I love it. Enviva. All right. What do they do? 5 billion market cap. Lumber and oh, okay. So they're a wood pellet company. I gotcha. All right, I will add this to my list. I've had a couple tickers that different folks have asked me to take a look at. I will add this onto my list. Yeah, let me jot that down. Thank you for the suggestion. I will take a look at it. At this point I've got a list of so many because I've gotten emails too. I've gotten a list of so many tickers. I don't know I'll be able to ever get to them all. I've got a list of more than 10 at this point, and it keeps growing. But that's yeah, that's a good problem to have. All right, anything else? Any last comments before I hop off? Thank you for tuning in, by the way, and just I'll give my standard spiel for anybody else who's watching this after the fact. I do these streams usually 9, 10, 11. Tonight was actually midnight Eastern US time. And I would love to have people here on the chat live to talk and give me some feedback and comments and questions. I mean, I think you all have great comments, and I really appreciate it from everybody. And Brian says, "Great video, thanks, Deeth." You're welcome. Thank you for tuning in. I love it. Like being able to share what I found. So I will have jotted down now EVA, and I think that is going to be it for tonight. All right, mahalo. Sounds great. All right, take care.